Live from not too far from the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, the Bridget Mabandla Justice College is just to our rear. And that's where we pick up the story as it relates to the goings-on in the city of Ekurhuleni. Now, we were back in Boksburg yesterday. Of course, the suicide of Wiandre Pretorius, a man named in the testimony of witness D. Marius van der Merwe, who was slain outside his home in Brakpan in December last year. We heard from Eldred de Klerk, the National Police spokesperson, that Wiandre Pretorius was also a person of interest, person they were looking at actually with relation to that particular murder. Now, all of this is also externally related to what is, in fact, principally related to what's happening in Ekurhuleni, and that's the theme of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry today. Ziana Ngobo and our team, as always, following developments and proceedings there. I thought it was a good idea to really start with where are we now insofar as going back to what's been going on in Ekurhuleni.
I suppose now that we're in phase 2, good morning, we're going to be hearing those who've been implicated responding. And we had started already with Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi, who, told us the waterman, the sweating bullets. He had already told us or given us his version of events, but there are already names in the president's statement that are probably going to be invited to come and give a response. Someone like Captain Tertius Stalls, who was allegedly there when that copper theft took place. You'll recall that CCTV footage of a white Golf GTI at this particular place in Meyersdal, where Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi is even wearing an orange T-shirt, and they were literally stealing copper under the cover of the badge. And these are some of the things that witness D, who we now know as Marius van der Merwe, testified to and gave specific names. Two Brakpan police officers were allegedly involved in that murder of Emmanuel Mbenze on that fateful night in April 2022, where witness D was ultimately asked to go and dump the body in a river. Now with the, the death by suicide of Wiandre Pretorius, it begs the question of, will there still be anybody to testify as to why Mbenze had to die on that night in April 2022? Because the motive, even if you listen to AfriForum's private prosecutions unit, it's unclear what exactly was happening on that night.
You know, Zianda, when you say, will there be anyone else left to testify, that's not just a throwaway cavalier statement. It is deadly and it is real. We know, for example, in the Sowetan this morning, their lead story is around two of those officials killed, also connected to the night of Mbenze's murder. And isn't it so crazy? I was commenting to our viewers that it's almost as if his body, his spirit is speaking out from the grave. Whatever his crimes and misdemeanors might have been, the point is these dominoes in relation to his killing are now beginning to fall.
And it's so important as well, I think, Iman, and you would know this best as someone who was even there at that particular petrol station, the nuances as these people die. Yes, Wiandre Pretorius survived an alleged attempted hit last week, but he's also a perpetrator in his own right, a torturer, someone who was said to have been involved in the tubing of Emmanuel Mbenze, which is essentially suffocating someone. So it's one of those stories where you can almost sympathize, can be alarmed, but also remembering what the allegations that these people are actually facing. But again, the most alarming thing is that they were doing this under the cover of the badge. People who are supposed to be protecting us, people who are supposed to actually be the ones that are most upstanding, who have got a different kind of standard that they hold themselves to, they're the ones perpetrating allegedly and committing these crimes.
Eldred de Klerk, I mean, it's known as the thin blue line. For our purposes, it's now turning into the thick red line, given the deaths associated with this particular inquiry insofar as the conduct of police officers. When you think about what we heard from the National Police Commissioner's office around the potential of more arrests, as a police analyst, as an expert watching all of this, watching what I call criminal cannibalism, what are your thoughts on how much blood is likely to spill in the days ahead?
Good morning to the both of you on the streets of Tshwane, and to those who are watching. Iman, we can expect a lot more. A lot of us over the weekend were concerned about this latest development. It's not surprising. What it does say is that there are people who are determined for the truth not to be told. We don't know how much of the alleged hit on him was actually a warning shot, a shot across the bow to say to him, we are watching you, if and or we are coming for you, or both. Um, and if that is in fact so, we know that those listed in the case against IPID, and I believe it was 7 people, I think, were under investigation, 2 of them are gone. Are those involved slowly going through the list? Or is this completely unrelated? Because again, we now hear from the police's spokesperson that this might have to do with an organized crime entity that might be coming for them. So we don't quite know, is this tied up with the mining sector they were investigating, their security business that they were having, or their routine police work, or their own actions? As you said, there was an attempt at confession by torture or extortion, or coercion, sorry, not extortion, and which was typical for the South African police force years back. You arrest, you coerce, and you get a confession. There was no investigation needed. We don't know whether those actions led to the death of Emmanuel Mbenti. So, Iman, can we and will we expect more deaths? I hope not, but more attempts, probably. More people being scared to testify, most likely, and a greater effort on behalf of the state to ensure that they protect those who are willing to come forward. That is most probable. Iman.
And as a way to avert what's called the chilling effect from preventing people coming to testify and tell their stories, 12 persons of interest by police, 4 of those dead, Eldred, 3 by assassination, which Atlena Mate says has the same hallmarks in each of those killings, and then of course the suicide of Wiandre Pretorius, and that continues. I want us to talk about the expectations out of the Commission today, because we return to Ekurhuleni. Zianda's already shared with us some of the names. I'll add to those Dr. Imogen Mashazi as well, who gave her testimony, jaw-dropping testimony, I might add. Others, of course, connected to all of this. What would you hope to see from the Commission today? I mean, of course, we don't know who's going to be testifying.
Well, Iman, beyond the names, what we really need to understand, because this is not likely to come up at the ad hoc committee, so we need an attempt to assist our lawmakers and those with political oversight over our municipalities. We are hoping that those who do come and testify start focusing more on the institutional arrangements within the municipality that made this behavior possible. We have a set of relationships that essentially is corrupt. It's supportive of corrupt activity, and it was self-gratifying. Now we know there are individuals who had a particular set of authorities, needed to follow bureaucratic processes, were seemingly overwhelmed by those bureaucratic processes, but did enough to get around those bureaucratic processes, or to at least show minimum compliance. What we now need, Iman, is to make sure that we understand how atypical Ekurhuleni municipality is for the rest of the country. What is it about our municipalities, its institutional framework, its regulations and protocols, its bureaucracy, its decision-making, its structure that facilitates this kind of behavior, that enables this kind of behavior, that covers this kind of behavior, and at the end allows for people to even begin to think and believe that they will get away with this kind of behavior. And what then can we do to course correct? So yes, we need individuals to take individual responsibility and or collective responsibility. We also now need to start focusing on what about our institution that actually needs to be healed and corrected going forward.
And that's the bigger issue and the bigger challenge. Both you and Jeremy Vieri, our other analysts that we use as well, talking about this needing to go back to the institution of SAPS in our law enforcement. But I want to go back to Emmanuel Mbente, if we can, Zianda. His family, of course, approached IPID many times unsuccessfully since 2022. Nothing happened. Now we're seeing momentum. We also know that his death and his murder cracked open all of this. But tell us a bit more about him, and also the AfriForum taking up his case and trying to really put some energy in getting to the answers.
What we must not forget, Iman, is the fact that IPID itself is a very important subject that's been ventilated before this commission insofar as the alleged rot within IPID. You'll recall that there was a testimony given by Revo Spies when it came to Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi allegedly having secret meetings with the IPID officer that were supposed to be looking into some of the things that have come out at this commission, that being Officer Thulani Makakula. His name came up several times within the Ekurhuleni testimony. So that's the first thing, because if you look at just where all of this has been taking place, Brakpan seems to be a hotbed for everything and anything that's taken place. And so when we talk about IPID and Emmanuel Mbenze's family not seemingly getting answers, it's important to remember that IPID itself has a lot of questions to answer for. But going back to your question about Emmanuel Mbenze, he is a man who we were just told there was a man who was murdered, tortured, and dumped in a body, in a river, beg your pardon, in 2022. Not knowing, the family did not know on that day that Marius van der Merwe would testify about him. But it's unclear what it is that Emmanuel Mbenze was doing, or why he would have been subjected to this kind of treatment in the early hours of the 15th of April, but also the family then having to approach AfriForum's private prosecutions unit to actually get answers. They have been writing to IPID's head about this case that has taken a while, and now if you go back to the murder of Marius van der Merwe, I recall distinctly that the Deputy Provincial Commissioner, Fred Gekana, saying that the IPID officer that was looking into the issue around the murder of Emmanuel Mbenze was also on the scene of the murder of Marius van der Merwe. We now know that Wiandre Pretorius was also allegedly a person of interest in van der Merwe's murder. But the question still remains, why didn't IPID act? The AfriForum Private Prosecutions Unit will tell you that the family, the Mbenze family, was consistently told arrests are imminent, which is why I'm saying perhaps one of the reasons why this was stalling is because of the alleged corruption within IPID.
And this leads me to our closing question, Eldred, is on, who polices the police. When we think of the task team the President's going to institute, I know we touched on this issue not too long ago, that everyone who's going to be involved in really sorting all of this out has got to be above reproach.
Absolutely, Iman, and there are a number of institutions they can be drawn from. Their head should, whoever leads this particular task team and takes accountability for them, yes, they can reside under the office of the, and we need to know that it's the office of the National Commissioner rather than just the National Commissioner him or herself, because that's where there is decisions and accounting for resources and spend particularly, and accommodation. So the team that gets put together needs to be led and needs the political support to enable their work. They can be drawn from a number of other state institutions or maybe other individuals that can be brought on board. They need to already hit the ground running, and they need to work alongside the investigators and the evidence leaders at Madlanga to ensure that those affidavits that are there, that they understand what's in those affidavits and where those affidavits might be leading and to whom it's pointing at this stage, Iman.
All right, Eldred, again, as we said, there's immediate work, there's intermediary work, and there's this long-term institutional work and change that needs to happen before South Africa has a normal police service, as Wiandre was saying, all of this happening under the cover of the badge. We'll leave it there for the moment. We're live and in charge here on the streets of Tshwane. We're going to head inside the Justice College right now, and we'll see you at 8 o'clock for more analysis and the setting of expectations on this resumption of the hearings at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, with a renewed focus on the goings-on in the city of Ekurhuleni. We're touching down on the 7:30 hour, coming back with sport.